Hello, girls, guys, or otherwise. This is Rich with your Christo-Pagan church catechism-ish thing. I don't know if we want to call this a catechism, but it's sort of set up that way, and that was intentional. I just don't want to call it catechism because it's not really catechism, but it kind of is, so who knows? Maybe this is our version of catechism. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, the setup for the Christo-Pagan church that we're starting here on YouTube. Um, Before I get too much into it, if you want to be a church founder, go into the bottom bar there and to the description down below. There is a link for Patreon. You can give for as little as $5 a month and be considered a founder for this church and whatnot. So you can do that. If you would like to help in other ways, you can always share this video to somebody who you think might benefit from it, or videos like mine, or any of my videos, really. Just have somebody watch them all, please. It does help the algorithmic gods of YouTube. You can also like or dislike either one. It all appeases the algorithmic gods of YouTube. All hail the algorithmic gods of YouTube, and also appease them by hitting that subscribe button, that bell notification, and leaving a comment as well. All that stuff helps. Anyway, shout out to our Patreon patron, Sophia. Thank you, Sophia. Be like Sophia, everyone. So if it is within your budget to do so, absolutely, I would appreciate it. So last week we talked about circle casting, cleansing the space, and creating this sacred space, this solemn area. Now, this week I want to talk about Deity and what happens after we invoke Deity, and then the homily section, the service itself, and then I'll discuss the after parts of the homily section onwards in next week's video. Sorry, I got a little bit gas there. So anyway, we have created a circle. We have cleansed the space. Now it is time to invoke Deity to be within our sacred space, our sacred circle area, our temple, if you will. So one thing is, I don't invoke Deity into myself. That is something that I don't feel comfortable doing. However, I do have Deity representations on the altar, as I've shown in other videos. And one of them represents the goddess figure. In my practice, it is Sophia, who is the goddess in my practice, and also the god figure in my practice is Christ. That's why it is a Christo-Pagan type of practice. You have Christ and you have Sophia. You could have Mary. You could have Mary Magdalene. Is another goddess figure that is used in Christo-Paganism that I commonly see. It can be any goddess. Usually you would see Christ in the practice as the god figure, and that's what it really usually tends to be for a Christo-Pagan practice. Now, whenever I invoke Deity into the area, into these vessels of statuary that we have here, I am not going to name the deity by name. I will say Lord and Lady, or Goddess and God, or something of that sort. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want this to be open to anybody who is outside of Christo-Paganism but wants to join in and doesn't necessarily feel comfortable with the Jesus or the Christ aspect, or the Sophia, or the Mary Magdalene, or the Mother Mary. Keeping it as Lord and Lady is a lot more neutral of a territory to be on. Now, whenever I'm doing this, of course, you all can watch this as well, especially if you're watching on the YouTube version. I will, and you know what, I'll talk about that here. No, you know what? I always say that I'm going to talk about it in a minute, and I never end up doing it. So, there will be a podcast version of this service. So if that's something that you want to download and listen at your leisure, that is something that you can totally do. Now, whenever we're talking about doing the podcast, I'm only including the homily. The reason being is because showing everything of me walking around and everything like that and creating sacred space and whatnot is going to be a little bit difficult for an audio-based type of service. So I'm only going to include just the homily. Um, so if you want to create your own sacred space and then join us in the homily and just, be in that space during the homily, that's fine. You can listen to the podcast that way. Or if you have something to do and you can't tune in on YouTube, but you really want to catch the homily section, absolutely, you can do that on the podcast and whatnot. So it will be titled the Christo-Pagan Podcast. So there you go. And that's also where we're going to have the Christo-Pagan Bible studies or scripture studies that we have done in the past. This one's going to be a little bit more regimented, and I'll get more into that whenever I actually do the intro for the podcast itself. So we're going to talk about that on the actual podcast itself. So now we're in the space of invoking deity. I will be referring to them as Lady and Lord, or Lord and Lady, respectively. And then we are invoking them into this area to embody in the statuary that is sitting there. Now, if you are from a different practice, or if you see the goddess, your goddess figure as Mother Mary, but I see her as Sophia, that's fine. Whenever I say Lady, you say Mary. Whenever I say, whenever I say Lady, you say Mary Magdalene, or Hecate, or Morgan, or Diana, or any one of them can join, and I think we would be okay with that. To me, this is a community building as much as anything. So really, whenever we're in that moment of invocation, invoking Christ, or invoking Sophia, or invoking whichever deities fit your Lady and Lord, just go ahead and have them named by name in your area, and they can all join. I don't think there would be immense conflict between them. So I think that would be the best way for us to actually invoke deity into the church setting, into our temple area. Now, after that, then, where I would normally say, let's sing, or let's praise them through song, and then we would get up and we'd sing a hymn or something like that. We will not be doing that. For one, you don't want to hear this sing. That's for sure. For two, many of those songs are, copyrighted and whatnot in one way, shape, or form or another. Whether it's the music itself that's copyrighted or the wording that is copyrighted. And I don't know about you, but I don't know if you've noticed, but YouTube is a little strict. YouTube will throw out a copyright violation, left, right, and center. So one thing that we have to make sure of is that in order for the most people to be able to get access to this, and for it to, speak to as many people as possible, we have to kind of follow the rules as much as possible. And doing a hymn or something like that, if it gets us flagged, for instance, I had one video. It was a cooking video that I did. It was what is it, spinach lasagna that I did, and it is phenomenal. I love spinach lasagna. And I was showing people how to make it and whatnot, and that got flagged for copyright. Or it was either copyright or inappropriate um, language or something like that. I'm like, there's no inappropriate anything in this. It's literally a cooking video. And I rewatched it just to make sure. And it was very cringeworthy because, well, I don't like to rewatch my old videos. Anyway, um, I wanted to make sure that we did not get copyrighted or copyright infringement claims for any of the videos, especially the ones dealing with the church. And so I've said to myself, you know what? We cannot do hymns. Now, I know this might be a disappointment to many individuals who really get a lot out of singing or out of music in general. However, this is the battle that we fight. Or this is not the hill to die on, that type of thing. These are the battles that we're fighting here. Being able to, you know, rejoice or praise and, you know, being held back by a copyright. So yeah, we're not doing that, and this is not the hill to die on. I don't think it is. And instead, what I want to do is I want to highlight some poetry. Um, and this can be poetry from somebody that has been dead for 100 years. This can be somebody that has just come up with a piece of poetry within the last 2 weeks or so. You know, and they're like, hey, do you, if you need this poetry for one of your services, let's, you know, go ahead and highlight me. I like to, you know, I'd like to give a little bit by having poetry in it. And of course, I would give the author credit. So the poet or the author of this piece of poetry will also receive credit for it, of course, and that will be at the end. But it's going to be poetry that I think reflects the overall message. So I've seen this in Catholic churches where the message that they have for the homily section does not go hand in hand with any of the scripture that was said during the service. And that irritates me. Your scripture reading should reflect the service. And I know that they have a lectionary that's set schedules of you have to say this and this and this. And I respect that because it is very organized, and I am something of an organizational freak. So I was looking into doing something like that, but ultimately I decided not to, because sometimes you have a situation where the message that needs to be said for that week doesn't have, or the scripture that is supposed to be said that week doesn't have the message going hand in hand. So by that I mean, if, say, something tragic happened and I wanted to do a service on grief, or was called to do a service on grief and how we can get through that time of grief and whatnot, and the scripture that was supposed to be said um, during that week was about joy and having a joyous event and celebration and whatnot. Yeah, I could try to alter that message, but ultimately it's a time that people need a little respite, and they need to kind of sit with those grieving emotions and process through it and decompress with it. So I thought it was a little bit more respectful um, to the service in all, to do a poetry that reflects the service. And then after that, you know, doing a scripture reading, if there is a reading of scripture. There may not always be a reading of scripture. So it may be, you know, okay, we're going to do this piece of poetry and then go right into the service. Or I may say, you know what, I don't have a poetry reading for this week, but here's a piece of scripture that I found really helpful and something we can meditate on and chew on for a little bit and really get some meat out of it. So, you know, those can be interchangeable. And there might be times whenever there's poetry and scripture. So it can be one or the other or both. And then we get into the homily section. Now, the homily, the sermon, the service itself. I wanted to talk about this because I have certain goals to reach for every week. My goals for this, and I will say they are not fully my original thoughts of goals, is from a Catholic priest that was in the Pittsburgh area whenever I was growing up, that had a radio broadcast. And I really enjoyed his services that he would do on the radio broadcast every Sunday. And his name was Father Scott C. Tyler, or it's C. Tyler, I think. It's spelled kind of odd. But he always had a goal with his services to inspire you, to make you think, and to make you laugh. So my thoughts on this were to inspire you, to make you think, make you laugh, and help you become your best self. So in all of the homilies that I give, I want to give you some inspiration to be your best self. Make you think of how you can be your best self or be a better version of yourself. And then to make you laugh. Because without a little bit of joy in our lives, that, let me just say that there may be days whenever, or maybe even weeks, where there is only one thing that brings you joy a week. And maybe you're going through a hard time. Maybe there's an unfortunate incident in your life that, yes, you are not laughing. You don't have joy in your life right now. But you tune into one of the services and I give you a little chuckle with a bad dad joke. It's either a bad joke or a dad joke, and the difference is apparent. But maybe, and if you got that, fantastic, it's great, it worked. But if you get that joy from one moment, from one little silly joke that doesn't always land well, may make you think, but overall is just some frivolity. If you have that one moment of joy a week, and you only have one moment of joy that week, and it's from that service, it did something. It hit you in a way that you needed to be hit, put it that way. But that is my goal with the service itself, the homily itself, is whenever I'm sitting with Deity and in the preparation of coming up with a service and whatnot, with a homily, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, how are we going to inspire them? Is there a piece of scripture that we can look at? Is there a culture in the world that we can look at? Maybe there's a pagan author, a witchy author that we can look at and gain inspiration from. Maybe there's a story of homeless to Harvard type of individual that came up from nothing. Can we look at that as inspiration for our own life? And to make you think, how can I be like that? How can I get to that success, or to that insight of my own practice, of my own faith, of my own walk with Deity? How can I get there? Maybe even just make you think about hey, I never thought of, I don't know, using something within arm's reach. I never thought of using pumpkin seeds in my practice. So, maybe that's, inspiration to go and use pumpkin seeds. And then to make you laugh. But at the very end there, the part away from Father Scott is to help you become your best self. So this isn't me sitting down and doing life coaching. Maybe one day, if I feel called to do it, maybe I'll do that, but it's not today. So how am I going to help you become your best self? Is it giving you the tools to, question the scripture and to look at it in a different way as a mythos rather than as clear historical facts? Maybe it's that. Maybe it's by looking at a pumpkin seed in a different way. Maybe that's helping you become your best self. So is it giving you the tools, or is it saying, hey, by this inspiration, you are being taken to be your best self, just by inspiring you to do your best and become better than you were the day before? Are you becoming your best self then? And maybe it's just because I made you laugh that day that you're going to be better than what you were the day before. And that, again, is part of the journey to becoming your best self. So I guess maybe the phrase that I should go with is, my job here is to help you become your best self by inspiring you, making you think, and making you laugh. Maybe that's the best way to put it. But these are the points that I want to hit whenever I give a homily. And, I think I can hit those points with most of the things, I think. I actually have a friend that's doing 1,000 bad jokes, yeah, on Facebook, and they are freaking hilarious. I'm probably going to steal a few from him. But he's a friend of mine from Kansas, so yeah, it is fun. Anyway, you might hear some of those jokes on here. But yeah, that's going to be the homily section of it. And then after that, we are going to have a prayer. And we're probably going to have a prayer beforehand just to make sure that we're all ready to go into the homily section. And then we'll have a prayer afterwards. And one thing I do want to say is, with regards to the prayer, it's going to seem a little formal, and it's going to seem a little Christian on the heavy Christian side. And just know that it is not all just Christians that can be there. It is anybody who feels welcome in that space. Hi, baby. You coming over? Okay, nope. Okay. But yeah, they are going to seem very Christian, and I think that's okay in this sense, because it doesn't matter who you're praying to, as long as if it is in a sincere way. And for me, that is what really counts with prayer. So we're going to have a little prayer session, and that's going to be right before we get into the Eucharist portion, the Lord's Supper. Now, that's going to be probably a whole video in and of itself, but that I will discuss next week. So yeah, we're about at that point where views start dropping off. So anyway, I will discuss the Eucharist portion of the service in next week's video. I also would like to, while we're doing the catechism parts, talk about sacraments and all that good stuff. So yeah, we're gonna even have times to talk about that. So yeah, we have plenty of time before the 2nd of January to get on into the services, so I want to be as detailed as possible in making these videos. So next week we're going to talk about the Eucharist in its entirety, and then we're going to get on into some other parts of the service and how we close everything out. So, and that'll probably be in the last video. So I'm going to look at my calendar here. So we have, this is airing on the 31st, which is Happy Samhain. We're going to talk about the Eucharist on the 7th. We're going to talk about the after Eucharist parts and the closing on the on the 14th. And then we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 Sundays before the end of the year, which I think will cover all the sacraments. So yes, let's set that as a plan, and I'm going to keep it as recorded because this is the only way that I remembered exactly what I was going to talk about this week, even though I think I said I was going to cover the after service parts. Anyway, that's about all that I have for this week. So until next week, if you're watching this on the date of its release, before I leave, go into the description, hit that link for the giveaway. I do have a lot of things for the giveaway. If you are watching this and if you haven't commented before I wake up on the 1st of November, if it's commented before I wake up on the 1st of November, I will include it in the giveaway. So go there, watch in that video for the details. If you haven't left a comment with the specifics in mind, make sure you do that, because I do have quite a few things going into this giveaway, and I don't want you to miss out. So that's all I have for this week. Until next week, may you have love, hugs, and ladybugs. Bye bye.